Welcome to another episode of the InfoTech Growth Partner Podcast, the podcast where the future of IT unfolds, and we dive deep into the pertinent developments in regards to IT and data with leaders and experts within the IT consulting field. My name is Jasper, and today I have the distinct pleasure to have Jigar Patel from PAteam on the show. Jigar is the co-founder of PAteam, and I'm very happy that we have him on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jasper. Really glad to be here as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you give the audience a little bit of introduction about yourself, a little bit of background about yourself, about PAteam, and of course what your role within the company is as well?
Absolutely. As you said, I'm one of the co-founders of PAteam. We started PAteam back in 2016. We provide strategic automation consulting, and we specialize in delivering of those automations to enterprises, to small businesses, and tailor make those platforms. And of course, we're also providing AI services now, including more traditional intelligent document processing, LLMs, and such. So we're always innovating and working with our customers to bring sort of leading edge technology and implementation of that.
Perfect. Very straightforward. And I think a lot of people already know about automation, or at least have tried some things with that, understand that they need to do something within the company.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess most of them also are not really sure where and how to integrate it within their business to enable growth, to enable scalability. Can you give us some perspective on the common challenges that these businesses face, that you work with, that you speak with, and how automation can help overcome those?
Yeah, it reminds me of the old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
I do,
Uh,
yeah.
it's I've lived long enough in the IT field now to see those waves come across. There's a big difference, of course, with the AI thing that's happening now. But you know, um, when I first started working within automation back in late 2000s, we I was working for a startup that was specifically oriented around attended automation, um, which is closely or the beginnings of the RPA, or robotic process automation world, or unattended automation. Um, and the challenges there, I think, are very similar to what people are experiencing now, maybe in a slightly different way. But yeah, it's exactly, what are the use cases that you want to go after, the right size use case, the right ROI, because if the first few really don't do well, if the ROI isn't there, if the change management isn't taken care of, then it becomes a very challenging adoption, right? And these technologies, for sure, if done moderately successfully, boost productivity out the roof, enable businesses to grow way beyond their current labor force, and what they can actually accomplish with just normal workers. Adding digital workers and adding these technology really enhances that aspect and accelerates the business growth really rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of benefits to it, as long as you
Yeah.
do it well, as long as you make sure that the change management and adoption is there. What do you think that is still holding people and businesses back in actually investing in these types of things and automating a big part of their business?
I think so. First of all, as well, RPA. If you heard of it, it was the promised silver bullet, right? A lot of these technologies are, unfortunately. So I feel like the expectation is just wrong, and of course the vendors, the market leaders, also they temper it now. They don't say it outright, but with the introduction of AI, they're kind of on that same boat again of anybody can do it. It's a low code, no code platform, which is fine. It is a low code platform in most cases, and getting to a no code scenario in certain use cases. But it still takes really somebody really that understands how this should be implemented. What are the metrics that you should be looking at? So I think that some businesses just don't understand, first of all, that they can start small or small enough and still have a big impact. And secondly, I think it's an analysis paralysis, or they get this like I said before, a wrong use case, and then they get demystified, and then it's out the door. Like, it's junk. We don't want to try it. It doesn't really work. That sort of thing. So I think that's what's holding people back, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you share some of the use cases that you think these automations, and especially maybe in combination with AI, are and can be very valuable?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest things that when RPA kind of broke out back in 2015, regardless of the verticals, the really low-hanging fruit that they went after were the HR department, were the finance department, and the processes within them, and really anything reporting wise that folks might be doing, and that's just a very small sampling. So hopefully this kind of will meet across verticals. But yeah, there's plenty of specific vertical examples that we can go into. Obviously not today because we don't have enough time, but to elaborate on these specific areas, with automations, folks were the easiest one was employee onboarding and offboarding, especially in big enterprises. I think the statistics is that in enterprises, the average number of application is upwards of like 900 different applications. And obviously those, not all of those are going to be homegrown, and not all of those are going to support single sign-on, even if they are homegrown. So making sure that people get the correct access, the correct privileges, and then when they leave the company, then making sure the data is secured and their information is scrubbed and following regulations, really to a very minute kind of level to make sure. And it's very important that you don't make mistakes, because obviously if you keep information that you weren't supposed to, you can get into a lot of trouble, especially with the new regulations. So using automation, that's kind of where everybody started, at least big enterprises started. And if you throw AI in there, now you're able to help onboarding, like review resumes, look at the fit, help recruiters with communications. There's so many different aspects of this that we can go. And by the way, we can build things faster. We can build automations faster using AIs now, because that's one of the surprisingly that's one of the areas that AI is sort of good at, is creating code, creating instructions, if you will, for other automations to do and understand.
Yeah. And I want to touch upon a particular vertical. Like most of the audience on this podcast is in IT, is in IT consulting, in IT services. I know you have been working with such businesses as well. In your experiencing working with specifically those IT service, IT consulting firms, what do you see are typically the biggest bottlenecks or the biggest opportunities within those businesses that you can help resolve with automation and with AI?
Yeah, I think so. There's two angles to this, right? So there's the internal workings of an IT consulting services firm, or an MSP, I guess. I'll throw them under the umbrella as well. There's the traditional, especially MSPs are familiar with scripting and all that stuff, right? And unfortunately, there is AI being injected into all of these equipment, all of these tools, that make it easier to maintain, to update systems, to make sure network security is up to date, all that. So I think automation in this industry is implemented very widely. What I think would be different, or what can accelerate, productivity, if you will, is now offering a different way of engaging with your customers. So a lot of times IT consulting and IT services will provide, like an MSP will provide a service, and it's based on, a person or person hours or, things like that. And I think with where AI is going, where automation is going, if you don't bring that cost sort of down, because you're doing this via automation, and you can sell those services in a different way, like that, I think is where the IT services company can grow really well. Because it's much easier, much better, first of all, for your internal costs, to create something like this, which you can sell across customers. And secondly, it's a benefit to the customer. If they don't do it, the customers will then take this automation tool and do it themselves, and they'll end up losing those services. So
yeah, that's very interesting, and I think very relevant to those companies as well. Everyone, of course, knows there's a lot of small things that you can do with AI. Like, I think most people have been using ChatGPT in some kind of way, whether it's creating an email, creating a post, creating content, those types of things.
Yeah.
Can you maybe share some examples of bigger transformations within businesses, where you implemented automation that has helped specific cost savings, specific quantifiable results or business value that has resulted from that?
Yeah. So, I'll start with the traditional one because I think it's still very relevant. I know, so RPA, which is what we started implementing and what we specialize in still, really got hot around 2015. And, it's only been, 9 years. The first 5 years of a new technology, of course, people are still adopting and all that, and people are very much still trying to get the most out of this tech. So within the RPA realm, I'll give you an example of one of our customers who unfortunately is no longer, at least no longer there in the way that they were, Thomas Cook. They went through a bankruptcy quite publicly a few years ago, but they were an organization where we essentially made a ROI machine like I haven't seen yet, and maybe that speaks to how inefficient maybe internal processes were, but I'll take the other angle where I think we were really helping them transform their business. So for every dollar or euro, in this case, they invested in automation, specifically the program that we were building with them, the return was €3 within the year. And this was, officially certified with their finance team. The director that we had, or program lead that we had at Thomas Cook, also spoke about it quite a bit before, of course, the company got filed for bankruptcy. But there's huge gains. If you throw AI in there, there were a lot of automations where we still had what we call human in the loop, where there could be small decisions that we want a person to actually review, or if there's communication going out to a customer, and if it's not a standard formatted email, that we have to get a person in the loop as well to review that. And I think with AI, it's a very slight change, but we can change that aspect. And so that's a big one, to see if we can initiate and generate emails and have even less work for a person to do, and just read it, approve it, and it goes out instead of helping the automation write something, make sure it's clear, and that sort of thing. And then the other aspect, like I said, reporting is a big one. So AI is really good at summarizing and extracting, insights out of reports. And so these monthly reports, weekly reports, especially quarterly reports from finance teams that are being generated, if you want to summarize them, if you want to understand them maybe better, giving it to a LLM and then letting executives just ask it questions, letting executives get a summary from it. I think it's very, very important. Now, it may seem like less time savings, but from a bigger perspective, it does save a lot of time because there's tons and tons of meetings where you review data, where you talk about, well, this is what this means, that actually means that, and now you have a really good system that can help you understand that.
Yeah, and what you mentioned at the beginning with Thomas Cook, you created sort of a machine with a 3 ROI within a year. And with that, of course, the upcoming years, and I don't know how long Thomas Cook has still lived up until that point, but the rest of that you will continuously reap those rewards with that investment today. You've already talked a lot about AI and the integration of AI within automation. Can you maybe walk us through the specific milestones in the last couple of years? AI has been around for a lot of years already. I think the big breakthrough, the big general breakthrough was, I think, 2 years ago with ChatGPT. But can you maybe give us a perspective on how AI has evolved and how over the years it has been integrated within automation as well?
Yeah, I could try. I'm certainly not an AI expert, I'll admit. Although AI, as you say, has been around for a while, and just being in the space, I've interacted with it. And actually, I'm learning a lot about the history of it, of course, as I teach myself and learn myself. So yeah, AI, I think, it's going to be a boring opinion. What everybody's saying is true. It is a very big change in how we do work. It's going to impact every single industry, from the lowest kind of data entry workers all the way up to executives. And what I've seen is, and that's why I say there's a slight difference with this change, if you will, than the other ones. What I've seen is AI, the impact that it can bring is really, really rapid. So as I mentioned before, with RPA, with any technology, the first 5 years, you still kind of, the technology is maturing. People are still understanding how to use it. But with AI, even the smallest implementation takes less time, number one, and I think impacts a much larger audience, and then the level of impact is much deeper. So even things recently, and again, I founded PAteam in 2016. Prior to that, I was part of a large enterprise team. And I forgot, to be honest, how difficult it is in an enterprise with 10,000 employees, 30,000, maybe 100,000 employees, how to understand internal procedures for normal things. Like, how do I request for time off, which might have changed since you were introduced to the company, right? So how do you get that latest information? How do I get my pay stubs in America? Once in a while you have to think about that stuff. And it's a completely different system. It's a different login, different process. If you need to reset it, it's a different thing. So just having AI look at your internal data and being able to ask it, interact with it in that way can be so impactful. And that's table stakes, believe it or not. Like, when Microsoft first pushed out 365, it also pushed out its own Bing version of search, which was supposed to be a better search than Google. But the results are still wishy-washy, right? It's not always hit. It doesn't get you what you need. But we've implemented that AI assistant internally at PAteam, and it's great. It's actually very accurate. It gets the latest information. It understands versions of documents and picks the data from the latest version. So, just simple things like that. It's amazing. And I was gonna say that the dreaded intranet site. I think a lot of people will be familiar with it. That is like a SharePoint or this cobbled together thing, and it has 2,000 links, and it's got so many different things inside of it that you don't really know how to utilize it when you need it, right? Because you will really only go there when you need to do something very specific, and then of course, then you run into issues. So just implementing an internal AI kind of chat interface for any of these internal things could be a big impact. And like I said, that's like the very simple thing you can already do, probably. And of course you do have to think through how you do it, because obviously there's things that you don't want the AI to go over, and things that you shouldn't, like HR files, like compensation information. So you do need to be cognizant of how you implement it, what data it's able to get to, what kind of questions team members are able to ask, and how that information is delivered. I'll give you another example, which it's 2024, and I didn't understand the impact of it. Was just in logistics, just being able to ask for a warehouse manager, for somebody that's doing ordering, in manufacturing world, hey, how much of this item do I have? And just getting an answer, instead of opening up two different applications, putting in, typing in a description, which is never the same, by the way. Like, descriptions are made up by people, right? So I might say one thing, you might say another thing. Systems are not talking to each other, so now you have to find the UPC code or whatever, identification code, and then you might get multiple hits, and it's a mess. So being able to just ask something and getting an answer, it accelerates that industry, the productivity to a very exponential level. It's crazy. Just simple things like that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say as well. It looks very simple from the outside, like being able to retrieve your inventory, how much there is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really think about it, what the impact will be downstream of having that insight and not having to go look into different applications, not having no issues, no errors in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because thinking that you have a specific inventory but not having it, or the other way around, that's obviously can be very difficult for running a business. It's clear, of course, that AI is and in the future will have a big impact and a big contribution to automation and to RPA. Will probably, or maybe it is not the silver bullet, but will definitely have a big impact.
Yes.
Are there any other trends that you see around automation that you think companies should think about or at least prepare for?
Yeah, absolutely. I know recently, I guess I get inspiration from the consumer level, the news that's happening at that level too. So the Humane Pin was just released, and it's like a dead on arrival product, right? It's a pin that does things with less efficiency than your phone. Is not as good as taking pictures, and there's a whole bunch of reviews you guys can go and look at what it's supposed to do, how it actually performs, and things like that. And then the other device is the R1, which is supposed to be powered by what they're calling a large action model, and which is, I think, the more interesting one. So talking about that, those two things. First of all, there's a right way and a wrong way, I think, to go after a lot of these things that AI can do. And the second thing that I'm really, really excited about is that promise. When it's actually going to be delivered, we're going to be living in, a different kind of world. So if you imagine, and I think we've had demos from Google about this like a decade ago. You go visit a country and you're trying to have a discussion, and you're talking in English and they're talking in, Dutch or German or whatever, and you're able to, your phone's able to understand that, translate it literally live, and you're having sort of a not really interrupted discussion, right, back and forth in your native languages, but understanding each other pretty clearly. And that's one of the things that the human pin promised. But obviously, it doesn't deliver too well. There's big delays. There's this big AI engine in the background that's trying to send information through the cloud, get it translated, send it back. There's all these issues with it. But it's going to get better. We're going to have, AI models that work locally on your devices. We're going to have access to much faster connectivity, much more optimized language models. There's I don't want to go into the weeds too much, but there's technology out there. So typically LLMs are and AI is implemented through our RAG model, and there's technologies that are making that much more efficient. Compiling all that data and all that information into a much smaller package, which is inherently baked into the LLM. I'm way too dumb to talk about it in detail, but I've seen demos of it, and it's super exciting to see where this technology is going.
Yeah, so lots of things are happening, and things that people should keep an eye on, especially
Absolutely.
The companies. Well, in this case, the people watching, of course. If people want to learn more about you, about PAteam, about automation, where can they find you?
We'll keep it simple. You can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. Feel free to connect, to send me messages if you have any questions. And of course, you can just visit our website, pateam.co, and there's a contact us form there, and there's even a chat available. So, yeah, make it simple.
Yeah, I'll make sure that those links are provided as well, so people can find you easily. Thanks for being on the show. I think we had a very interesting discussion that I hope the audience found very interesting. So thank you for being here, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Jasper. Appreciate it. This was really fun.